Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Wednesday, October 18th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the last 2 weeks, we've seen very little precipitation over much of the Great Basin, and anything we have seen, even up into Idaho, has been well below normal. We have had no precipitation over the last 2 weeks or longer over parts of western Nevada into the southern half of the Great Basin. Looking at our 10-hour fuel moisture, even though this is a smoke dispersion briefing, we still have very low fuel moistures in some of our finer fuels after the dry conditions, which will become increasingly important as we move towards Thursday and Friday, and stronger winds will move across the Great Basin with low relative humidity. So 10-hour fuel moisture after the dry period is extremely low over most of Nevada into Utah and the Arizona Strip. Also, 100-hour fuel moisture is still below 5%, over the southern half of the Great Basin, and still relatively low up into far southern Idaho. The satellite loop from this morning shows generally zonal westerly flow across the Great Basin with only a few clouds over southern areas and clear skies further north. However, the main system to watch over the next several days will be the deep area of low pressure off the northwest coast, which will push eastward and allow for increasing winds across the Great Basin and eventually some precipitation, especially in the northern half of the area. Now looking at the weather pattern for later today. Again, very dry conditions continue across much of the Great Basin today, with the exception of the far south. We may see, with that cloud cover this morning, some showers later today over parts of southern Nevada, the Arizona Strip, and eventually into southern Utah through Thursday morning. The ventilation index will remain quite poor, as these winds will be fairly light over the southern two-thirds of the Great Basin, so most of Nevada, Utah, and the Arizona Strip will have poor dispersion, with slightly better dispersion further north into Idaho where the winds are a little bit stronger. Looking at the individual components, transport winds, the image on the left, shows the slightly stronger winds, especially over the central Idaho mountains, into parts of southern Idaho, where gusts will be between 20 and 30 miles per hour at times. Further south, very light winds will occur over the rest of the Great Basin, with relatively poor to moderate mixing height. Mixing heights will be a little bit higher as you move further north into Idaho. By Thursday, things will start to change a little bit more dramatically as this trough of low pressure moves eastward towards the west coast. We will continue to see dry conditions really area-wide, with the exception of parts of southern and eastern Utah, which still may have some lingering showers in the morning on Thursday. However, winds will be increasing across the Great Basin, and dispersion will increase area-wide. The strongest winds on Thursday will be across the Sierra Front into northwest and northern Nevada and parts of central Idaho, and it's this area of western Nevada into the Sierra that will be most problematic, as wind gusts could exceed 50 or 55 miles per hour at times, with relative humidity between 15 and 20%. Therefore, due to our very dry conditions we've seen recently, if we do get fire starts in this area, especially in the lower elevation grasses, we certainly could see spread during the afternoon and evening hours when winds will be the strongest. Mixing heights on Thursday will be relatively high over the eastern half of the Great Basin and will start to decrease in far western areas. As we move through Thursday night and Friday, the trough will move eastward across the Great Basin, and we will see winds increase further east, but also we'll see precipitation first move into the Sierra, into northwestern Nevada late on Thursday, and by Friday afternoon be targeting mainly the northern half of the Great Basin, especially into Idaho. With these gusty winds, as the system moves through, we still will have good dispersion in most areas. The strongest winds on Friday will be across the northern and eastern half of the Great Basin, however not as strong as we will see on Thursday over western Nevada, but we still will see wind gusts between 35 and 45 miles per hour at times, with the lowest relative humidity across Utah into eastern Nevada. Mixing heights again will be relatively high across most of the Great Basin with the exception of the central Idaho mountains and parts of northern Nevada. Looking at the forecast clearing index for Utah over the next few days, the clearing index will be very low today as those winds will be very light across most of the state. However, as winds increase Thursday and Friday, the clearing indices will increase with very good dispersion by Friday. Looking at the 3-day forecast amount of precipitation, again you can see good amounts of precipitation mainly across Idaho into northern Nevada and the Sierra, and also as this trough of low pressure moves through, snow levels will be dropping, and we will see new snowfall in the mid to high elevations across Idaho into northern Nevada. As we go into the weekend, we'll still have showers across the northern half of the Great Basin, and generally good dispersion in most areas with the exception of parts of Utah into central and western Nevada as the winds start to decrease and mixing heights decrease. By Sunday, we'll still have relatively breezy winds across Idaho with still some showers in the central Idaho mountains. However, drier and warmer conditions will start to develop over the southern half of the Great Basin. Therefore, dispersion will start to decrease as these systems start to move to the east and wind flows decrease. By Monday and Tuesday, we have a stronger ridge of high pressure that will start building over the southern and western half of the Great Basin. Therefore, we will see poor dispersion start to develop as these winds really start to decrease, but also much warmer temperatures once again. And by Monday and Tuesday, these temperatures will be increasing again back to above normal after a few days of temperatures dipping 10 to 15 degrees below normal this week as that trough of low pressure moves through. Overall forecast amount of precipitation for days 4 and 5, which is the Saturday through Monday morning period, again mainly targeting the far northern portion of the Great Basin with dry conditions further south. Looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook, which takes us into the mid to late portion of October, you can see warm and dry conditions are expected as that ridge of high pressure really starts to build back into the region. That concludes our briefing for today. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, check back for the latest updates on Friday.